as we move on, we got this is new for me. So now let's see who's eating good, presented by Applebee's, as we move on and we start talking about these new head coaches. The New Orleans Saints is the one team that we're not 100% sure about which direction that they're going to move as they continue to go through. It seems like everybody's saying Kellen Moore is the favorite to get that job, but he's still playing. But as we start at the top with the New York Jets and Aaron Glenn, what would be the number one priority for Aaron Glenn as he comes in and becomes the new head coach of the New York Jets?
Well, I think he's got the elephant in the room there, Dev. He's got to decide what they're going to do with the quarterback. Am I going to build around Aaron Rodgers and take one more run with him? Or am I going to say, Aaron, we're going to rebuild. You had a great career, but we're starting from scratch. I don't know which way they're going to go, but to me, that's the first thing they've got to get squared away as an organization.
Yeah, I agree. I think for Aaron Glenn, he comes in knowing the talent he has on defense, and I think his energy and attitude is going to elevate that defense on day one. But I think it's very interesting, and I wish we all could have cameras in there of I could see Aaron Glenn just going and meeting with Aaron Rodgers and them having this long conversation. Because I think so many people think like Aaron Glenn's going to go in there and be like, Aaron, this is what we're doing. You're either here or you're not. And everything I've gotten from Aaron Glenn is he's a guy that used to play. Like he wants to have dialogue and relationships with guys. And I think he's going to sit down. Hey, Aaron, you've been awesome your whole career. I've enjoyed watching like all those things. Like this is what we want to do moving forward. Like we want to know where you're at, where you think, do you see yourself with the team, like all of that. But I think he's going to stand on what he believes in and how the team should be ran. But I don't think it's going to be this like, him banging on the table of what has to be done. And I don't see that, but I see him as a guy who's just a leader of men.
Yeah. Amen. I agree. And
then moving on to Jacksonville with Liam Coen, I always think it's funny because we look at these like press conferences and like however you come across is like, this is what's going to happen for that team. Dan Campbell's biting kneecaps and we're like, well, the Lions are going to be bad. And now you look and obviously Liam Cohen's going viral because his Duval is saying that. But I think for him, the first thing is you have to kind of see what's there. Like you've had so much go on in Jacksonville. They fired Doug Peterson. They keep Trent Baalke. Then they move on from Trent Baalke. Then you come in. It just seems like everything's been moving and fast forward. I feel like his number one priority is just to slow things down for a second and just figure out things one by one. There's no quick fix to say, if we do this one thing, we're going to be fine. It just seems like he needs to kind of slow everything down and bring it back to normal speed and evaluate from there and then kind of move forward.
Absolutely. What type of team are we going to be? We've got a young quarterback who started out his career really well, and now people are down on him a little bit. Well, that sounds a little bit like Baker Mayfield. And I think Baker had a pretty good year last year, just doing what he's comfortable with. And I'm sure Liam Cohen's going to do that. So how is he going to relate to the rest of the team? How are they going to get the defense playing like they played a couple of years ago? As you say, just get them back on one page.
And how about out in Las Vegas with Pete Carroll? Pete Carroll's a guy, was in Seattle a year ago or 2 years ago now and was out of football for a year. Now he comes back in for the Raiders. What do you see his number one priority as?
Well, Pete's going to bring energy. He's going to bring that reputation. Everybody on that team knows what he did in Seattle. So to me, the big question is, who's going to be our quarterback? Who's going to be our leader? They've got to identify a guy and get behind him, build around him, and say, this is our guy, and go forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think quarterback is the number one priority for them to figure out what's that going to be. And then I think it's also kind of building around what Max Crosby is able to do on the defense and bring in more guys that kind of play with his energy and attitude. And I think it's going to be special to see like Mad Max running around and like Pete Carroll's antics on the sideline. But everything about the way he's run a locker room seems like it's going to be a good fit for Vegas. And I think it's a great opportunity because everyone thinks these coaches have to now be young, be relatable, as if like Pete Carroll can't be relatable to guys just because he's older. So I think it'll be interesting and open up different doors going forward if Pete Carroll can go to Vegas and have some success. And then moving on to the Cowboys, I know you have some history, obviously, with the Schottenheimers, and that goes way back. And I'm sure you spent some time around. Look at right there. Got
That was
Schottenheimer, and I'm
we
go
had
ahead.
Dallas and Tampa, and Brian comes over after the game, and that's his son Gage, and we take a picture. I met Brian when he was 14 years old, my first year working for his dad. He's been around the game his whole life. Coach's son, he's just soaked it up and he's been into it. He'll do a really, really good job. And my advice to him would be the first thing you got to do, Brian, is block out the noise. There's a lot of people saying you shouldn't have gotten the job. Jerry just got you the job because he wants to control things. Don't worry about any of that. Do what you do. Build this team in your image, the way you want it, and let everybody know this is going to be your team and this is how you're going to do it, and you're going to be fine.
I agree with you. I think that was my thing too. Of he has to come in and set the standard of what he thinks. Like I think about that Cowboys team. Like yes, he obviously has a great relationship with Dak Prescott. And I think the offense has been around him and they'll move in a direction. I always look at the other side of the ball as you keep your offensive coordinator is the relationships with the defense. Micah Parsons, an outspoken guy, like making sure those guys are all with you because every press conference he does is going to be, what are you going to do with Dak? How's the offense going to change? What's the running game? And it's going to be easy to forget, like, hey, like he's the head coach now. Like he's in charge of the whole football team. It's not just the offense. It's not just those things. So I think for him going in there and saying, no, like this is what we're doing as a team.
Yeah.
This is what I like. Like Michael Parsons is going to be here and figuring that stuff out. I think will be huge for him.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, Devin, that really kind of leads into something I wanted to talk about. We can take Pete Carroll out of that, but take these other three first-time coaches and add Ben Johnson into it. And I would tell those four guys, forget about X's and O's, forget about fixing the quarterback. The first thing you have to do is establish, guys, this is who we're going to be as a team. This is how I'm going to do things. And this is going to be our identity for the next 5-10 years down the road. I remember I went to Tampa in 1996, my first time as a head coach. I didn't have any reputation other than as a defensive coordinator. They hadn't had a winning season in 13 years. I had to sell them on how we're going to do things, what I expected. Hey, guys, we're not going to win with scheme. We're not going to win fooling people. We're going to out-hit and out-hustle people. That's what I expect. I expect us to be great teammates. I expect us to be the hardest working team. I expect us to be the least penalized team. And, oh, yes, by the way, I expect us to be great young men in the community. What we do off the field matters. I don't want to read about any of you guys in the USA Today for the next 6 months because in the offseason, they don't write about anything good that you do. The only thing they're going to write about is bad. So I don't want to see any of that. And this is how we're going to do things. And for a lot of guys, it kind of maybe caught them off guard. They weren't expecting that. But after that first meeting or two, they understood, well, this is how we're going to do it as Tampa Bay Bucks now. And I think that's what the young coaches have to, and everybody's going, oh, you got to fix the quarterback. You got to do this. You got to do that. It's not about that. It's about establishing who you're going to be as a team.
It's interesting you say that. I read a book, The Power of Habit, and I'm sure you remember sitting and talking to them. And a good amount of the book was, hearing about what you went in and how you established culture. And how much do you think has changed with like when you go in there and you want to establish who you are? Do you think it's very similar that when you did that on, in Tampa and Indy, are coaches able to do it in a very similar way?
I think it is. I think guys want direction. They want to be led. They want to do and know what they're going to be doing. Warren Sapp, he kind of said it out of, maybe trying to be funny, but I can remember him telling the reporter, I'm the only guy in town. I can tell you what I'm going to be doing next year on Thursday at this time because I know exactly what we're doing. It's not going to change. And this is what we're going to do because this is how coach lays it out. And that to me, I think guys want that. And when you tell them that this is how we're going to be, and we're going to be the most disciplined team, and this is how we're going to do it, we're going to practice hard. And I was when we had the Bucks, I was over at their practice, and Sheldon Quarles is on the staff now, and he played for me. And he says he still remembers the first meeting when I said we won't have the 53 best players. we're going to have the 53 players that give us the best team. So don't worry about being the best player. Worry about being the best teammate and the guy who can contribute. And he told me that's when I thought I could make the team. I knew I could contribute, and I knew I could help, and I knew you wanted that. And so I knew we were going to be fine.
That's awesome. And I think that's probably one of the hardest things as these coaches step into the seat, into these new seats and roles of how do you kind of be consistent day after day with all of the players, not just this player over here, but being and saying like what you just said. If this is what I say our standard is and what we're going to do, I got to hold you to that standard every single day. And I think some of these coaches, I think that's something that they probably had to do their whole life. And then for other guys, it could be a little bit of a surprise. But I think that's the aspect that people don't always look at. We look at what guys do as offense or defensive coordinators. But when you become a head coach, it seems that that is the number one thing, how you lead guys every single day, the expectation, all of that, which you don't always have to do. And I think you do it in a small part as a coordinator on offense or defense. But like, is that something you've mastered? And we watch like Dan Campbell and what he's been able to do. And speaking about Dan Campbell, how hard is it for like a guy like Dan Campbell? You come in, you have this success, not right away, but kind of early. And now you look up and both coordinators are gone. Several assistants are gone. How hard is it to replace and get a new staff going in that same direction you were going previously?
That can be tough when it happens that fast. You kind of build through it, and when you have some sustained success, you feel like, okay, we're going to lose some guys now. But to have it happen that fast, oh, all of a sudden I lost my offensive and my defensive coordinator. Oh, and they took my receiver coach and my line coach. And you say, wow, I wasn't ready for that. Yeah, maybe I could. I was thinking maybe Antoine Randall L is going to move up and be the coordinator. No, he goes too. So yeah, that can be an issue, and they've got to keep the continuity. But I think Dan and the way he does things, they're going to be okay. They're going to be fine. But you talk about coaches and establishing culture. I look at Kansas City, and everybody talks about Andy Reid and the play calling, and he's fantastic at it. But think about Kansas City. When's the last time you heard anything controversial come out of the Chiefs? Any problems that they've had or any issues? And you talk to their players, all they talk about is how hard they work in training camp. We're physical. Yes, we play in the preseason. Andy, he has said, this is how we're going to do things. And everybody knows what to expect, and they do it, and there's no issues. It's just one way of doing things. Sean McVay, the same way. And to me, that's where owners, I think, can get a little bit fooled. They look for the glamorous X's and O's, and McVay's got it, and Andy's got it, but that's not what wins for him. Mm-hmm. What wins is how that building is day in and day out.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.